They don't know if it was fortified. In one place they did find part of a relatively massive wall, but only one place, and so they speculate that due to erosion this wall might be gone. And of course people took stones from other places when they wanted to build something else too, right? They robbed them. It's easier to rob them than to go dig them and shape them yourself.
They have no antiquities authority.
They still don't pay attention to the Antiquities Authority today. Okay, so basically the earliest period from this site is the early Iron Age, the boundary between the late Bronze and the early Iron Age 1. And that's stratum 12 at this site. That means you have 12 identifiable layers that they found in their archaeological excavations. And the pottery associated with that is, this won't make sense to everybody, but it will to Yehuda, is what they call Philistine II and Canaanite mixture. So, let me explain what that means, kind of. So in a traditional explanation about the Philistines, they are seafaring people who come here and they settle in this area. And this is the core. You recognize these 5 names? Mm-hmm. Where this is the Pentapolis cities mentioned in the Bible, right? So in this area, they believe this is where the Philistine settlement started, and then they expanded. You can see Tel Kasile up here. So part of the way that they differentiate these different periods is with different pottery. And there's a pottery called Philistine 1, Philistine 2, and Philistine 3. And however, all of these paradigms are breaking down, but it's important to know this because for over 100 years, all the literature will explain it the way that I'm talking about it right now. But this is all completely falling apart, basically now, which is also important to know.
So did you say the small one is the Palestine 1, second?
So in their reconstruction, the main reconstruction which you'll see in most of the literature, unless it's relatively recent, is that the Philistines came from the Aegean or someplace when there was a late Bronze Age collapse, and they settled here. And then as they kind of settled in, then they expanded. Okay, this is based on archaeology. And this is partly...
They came and they got big, they got bigger, they took more land.
This is partly based on certain pottery forms, which that's why we're going to look here, and then we'll actually see some of these pottery forms in the museum.
You know these things. See, I can identify Middle Bronze and early Bronze, or late Bronze.
There's no late Bronze here. The earliest material is the Philistine II.
But they're all large, just large groups. That was blasphemous.
In any case.
So why do you say it's all fell apart?
Okay, so that's a good question. Why did this whole paradigm fall apart? So first of all, this is not inconsequential to somebody who believes in the Bible. First of all, a lot of the early paradigms that come from the early 1900s and some of the early explorers about the Philistines is based upon this theory right here. Okay? And this does not match the Bible. Okay? This is not what the Bible says. So based upon this pottery that they found here, this pottery that they called Philistine, they dated that based on Egyptian scarabs and stuff, and they date this to about the 12th century. Okay, so they say that this is when the Philistines came, but this is in the Bible. Where do you have Philistines? In the patriarchal period, there's already Philistines. Okay, so they basically just said the Bible's not right. Okay, so but now, and so this pottery and some other characteristics were key ways to identify Philistines in archaeology. But now the debate really they realize that this is very debatable. You can identify Philistines with these certain key characteristics. So we don't have, this isn't a class on archaeology, so we're not going to go into all the details, but it's important to know, one, that if you read older books, you're going to see this, and people don't agree with that today, and it's important to know that it doesn't match the Bible, and two, that there is a debate, and you should dig further if that's what you're running into. So that's our main points from this discussion.
Could be a paper now or later.
Working on it to prove the Bible is right. Are you working on it?
We aren't allowed to prove the Bible.
We're not allowed to.
When is somebody?
But we can say that it's consistent or not consistent with the Bible.
Consistent. It seems to be. It seems to be consistent. But you can't.
My wife proved the Bible is right. She's got it right there in that scroll you've got.
Yeah. Well, proving is a subjective thing. That's the problem. But you can give all the best evidence, and people won't agree with you.
On anything.
So it's one thing. It's one thing proving things to a Christian audience, and it's another thing proving things to a secular audience. So this is where it usually breaks down.
Or even a Christian audience that has rocks to throw.
Yeah. Yeah. Even in a Christian audience, you could have problems. Okay.
Yeah, from which period?
So in any case, the fact is that in all coastal areas, you always have a mixture in the archaeological record. It always looks mixed ethnographically. And it's very hard to prove who came from where and why it's there, and this is really where the debate goes now.
So what is Philistine pottery in the box?